Jim the Ape, wake up, see bullshit. Jim the Ape, start to rant. Jim the Ape hears disagreements from stupid humans who can't. They say Jim the Ape very oppressive and his ideas suck. His arguments are problematic, but he don't give a fuck. Jim the Ape think maybe feminists wanna grow up and get over themselves. Jim the Ape will say it out loud. Jim the Ape's an asshole and proud. Jim the Ape hates stupid. Jim the Ape hate SJWs. Jim the Ape, very simple ape with big, normal, and working brain. Jim the Ape want proof. Jim the Ape want proof. Hello again, humans. It is I, Jim the Ape. And I saw this video was already responded to by Mr. Repzion and some black guy, and Dr. Randomercam made a remix of it. So I wanted to get my blows in on this horse before it gets beaten to death so that I can tell the cops, I swear that horse was still alive when I got done with it. So let's get right into it.
To speak while women write, while women exist online, while women is dangerous.
Fuck. It's this victim narrative bullshit again. This here is a woman by the name of Agnes Turok, not related to the video game. And as soon as I figured out that she looked like actress Megan Boone to me, I also realized that the next season of The Blacklist is now officially ruined. But let's continue to find out why after this wild feminist appeared and used victim narrative, it wasn't very effective.
There is an online epidemic of violence against women.
Well, that didn't take long, did it? I will say this as many times as it needs to be said. You literally cannot be violent or have violence committed against you on the internet. The worst someone can do is say mean things about you or threaten you with violence. But guess what? Threats of violence and acts of violence are two completely different things. And the latter requires real-world, face-to-face contact.
Don't believe me? Ask any woman who writes online.
Interesting proposal. I think I'll take you up on it and do some Onision levels of research, which you should all know by now means a Twitter poll. So the question is, women who write online, do you experience violence over the interwebs? And the answers are, yes, it's an epidemic, no, that's retarded, or I don't know, how would that work? Survey says... As I'm recording this, just an hour before the poll ends, there are 44 votes. 5% said, yes, it's an epidemic, so that's not looking too good for your side of the argument. 36% said, I don't know, how would that work? And the winner, with 59% of the vote, is overwhelmingly, no, that's retarded. Thank you to everyone who voted.
Any female gamer or sports commentator, any artist or journalist.
Okay, you said ask any woman who writes online before, so I'm sticking with that.
And you will find a backlog of death threat upon death threat upon rape threat upon rape threats, always rape threats.
I again draw your attention to the difference between threat and action. Also, you have to take into consideration that those rape threats are obviously what gets under your skin the most, which is why trolls do it. Now, I definitely don't condone that sort of behavior, but I can at least understand that their intention is to get a reaction out of you, because as pathetic as it sounds, that's how they get their jollies. So if you don't react to them or use them as the brick and mortar to build your victim narrative, they'll probably just end up leaving you alone. Also, it's interesting to me how you don't even attempt to show a single example. So for all I know, you're talking out of your ass like Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
How did it come to this? To generations of terrified men hiding behind screens, muttering violent utterings, whore, slut, cunt, Feminazi.
Listen here, you feminazi bitch whore cunt slut. Sorry, but words literally cannot be, in and of themselves, violent. They may describe or refer to violent actions, but they cannot physically harm you. And I don't use the term feminazi for reasons I've explained before in response to Onision and to the girl with her little Brad the Strawman character. Basically, there's no difference in the ideas or the rhetoric. If anything, it's a term used to describe people whose actions are more extreme. But to me, it almost seems like the term is used as a way to separate those people from the other supposedly rational feminists, as if they're a completely different group. That's the way Onision used it anyway.
Why are they so afraid of what we have to say that every time I post a new poem online, I will inevitably get the comment, "Shut the fuck up"?
Who says they're afraid? Maybe your poetry just sucks and they're annoyed by it. You ever think of that? Of course not. See, I've posted quite a few poems in the form of poetry response videos. And granted, they're not the most watched videos on my channel, but the responses I've been getting in the comments of those videos have been positive. Now, maybe that's because my poetry in comparison to the poetry I'm responding to is better, or at least more structured. But to be honest, I wouldn't really care if I got negative comments like, "Shut the fuck up." And do you know why that is? It's because I have fun making those poetry responses, and because I don't require validation from others to keep doing what I like to do. I do appreciate it though.
To be dangerous is to speak while woman, to speak truth to power, to speak truth to power, to speak at all while woman is dangerous.
What the fuck is this speak while woman shit? Congratulations! As a human, you're speech capable. I'm not even human, and I too have that ability. Also, you said that bullshit platitude about speaking truth to power twice in a row, rapid fire. I don't know what that was about, but are you quite finished patting yourself on the back for existing yet? Because it seems to me all this is basically suggesting that women, or feminist women in particular, should have a big circle jerk for having the courage to have opinions and state them publicly. Oh my god. The fact is, no, it's not dangerous unless you live in a country where certain opinions or forms of speech are punishable by death or at least imprisonment. And judging by your accent, you don't. So, moving on.
Because when we decide to speak, we become dangerous women. When we decide to speak, we become dangerous to the status quo because our voices can shatter glass ceilings.
Are you a poor, helpless victim of mean, nasty cyber violence? Or are you a dangerous and powerful badass for the mere act of utilizing your vocal cords? Pick one!
Because our words can tear apart silence woven shut over centuries.
Again with the appeal to history fallacy. Look, even if women were historically silenced or oppressed, which I'm skeptical that they really were, there's one simple thing you need to know. The past is not the present!
Because for us to choose to be heard instead of just seen is still revolutionary.
Fuck, I hate this faux emotional, feel bad for this demographic that I'm telling you is oppressed because I used sad background music and a somber tone of voice bullshit. It's the same kind of shit they used in the 23 ways you could be killed if you're black in America video. But I hesitate to say they had more of a point there because at least those people were actually killed. Can you name one woman who has expressed a desire for equal rights who has been killed for it? Possible exceptions for Muslim countries and religiously motivated honor killings, but for the most part, women don't even face much opposition when they spout cult-like ideological horse shit about patriarchy and male privilege, much less the gender equality that feminism claims to be all about. Revolutionary my fucking ass.
When I speak online about women's rights to their own bodies, terrified little men threaten to hang me from trees.
Well, that's not very original of them. They should get creative with that shit. Anyway, what do you think happens when I speak online about men's rights to their own bodies? Specifically, when I suggest that men should have the right to have their entire bodies intact at birth so that they can decide for themselves when they reach adulthood whether or not they'd like to keep their foreskin. Well, most people don't say anything, I guess because it makes them uncomfortable. A few agree with me and support the same cause. And feminists, well, they're usually the ones making excuses about how there's medical benefits to it, or it's considered more desirable in sexual situations, all while forgetting the fact that a freshly popped out baby is strapped to a table, literally kicking and screaming before having its unanesthetized skin cut off. Yeah, it's fucking barbaric, and I've only ever heard one feminist say anything against it. To her credit, that one feminist was Lacey Green.
To rape me out of my opinion.
I'm sorry, I was not ready for that. How would that work exactly? Like they're raping you and yelling like, change your opinion now! And then all you have to do is be like, okay, I've changed my mind. And then they're like, okay. And then they just leave? I gotta say, that line really conjured not just a mental image, but a hilariously bizarre mental scene in my head. Don't worry though, I managed to avoid actually picturing you naked, thankfully.
To force me to stay silent, to force me to shut up.
How would they do that, exactly? Don't you have freedom of speech as a protected right in your country?
To become a dangerous woman is to decide to be heard instead of just seen, is to decide that your favourite body part is not your tits or your ass or your waist, but your teeth, your tongue, your vocal cords.
I don't think you need to have a favorite body part, but if you do, you have to only pick one. That's how the concept of favorite works.
Is to find that the most beautiful part of yourself
Typo!
Cannot be seen by outsider because it resides within your mind.
How very binary and cis-normative of you to think that women are interested in being beautiful. Seriously though, this is like Care Bears shit. More like Who Cares Bears, am I right?
Every time I receive a wave of online violence and abuse, I find it is the same thing. It is always from men. It is only from men.
Oh really? Well, putting aside how sexist that assumption is, and the fact that you're probably not checking the gender of every single person who leaves you mean comments, it doesn't really matter what you find to be the case, because some people find the exact opposite to be true. For example, going back to my Twitter poll, one of the respondents tweeted, after a couple of tags, should do one if they feel the violence, in quotation marks, is from women or men. I vote women on that one every time. So clearly it is not always men or only men. I happen to think it's sometimes men, sometimes women. And the most horrific comments tend to be those made by someone of the same sex as the target of said comments. But of course, you can always find exceptions and counterexamples because people are individuals, not collectives, and because nuance is a thing.
And it is never about what I'm speaking about. It is about the fact that I am speaking, that I dare to be speaking while living in this body, while this body is living in this world.
So, is that assessment based on what they actually say, or are you claiming to be telepathic?
The first time I received a death threat for my poetry, I was proud. I belly laughed with the joy of it. I wore it as a badge of honour. I felt it read, I am a dangerous woman.
Are death threats a badge of honor to be proud of because they just prove how right you are somehow? Or are they horribly crippling acts of violence and abuse through the internet? Again, make up your fucking mind!
I threaten patriarchy. I make the status quo shake to its core. I am a dangerous woman. Hear me roar.
It's more like bloviating. You're not dangerous in any way, shape, or form. You are the fucking status quo, and the patriarchy doesn't exist. At least not in the way you would probably describe it.
The first time I received death threats online, I was proud. I had made some little man so afraid. He used every word he had ever learned to shut a woman up, to silence and disbelief, to force us into quiet.
Some little man? That's ableist and offensive to people of smaller stature. Anyway, I must again reiterate that no one can literally force you into silence. And I would like to add, since you seem to be alluding to the whole listen and believe thing, that one can listen to what you have to say and be skeptical, question your claims, ask for evidence, and not be trying to silence you. In fact, that generally means they want you to continue speaking, but to do so in order to give your previous words more credence. Now, remind us again of those 4 things that you are.
Whore, slut, cunt, feminazi.
You said it, not me.
The first time I received a death threat for one of my poems, I was proud.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I haven't even read or heard any of your poems, and even I feel the urge to put a pillow over your face, just because you keep repeating the same old bullshit.
But the 10th time, the 11th, the 12th time I received a death threat for one of my poems.
We know what you're referring to! Fuck, if I had a beer for every time you said those same exact words, I'd be drunk enough to keep my sanity, and I would probably be pissing on a tree right about now.
I was tired. I was annoyed, I was exhausted, I was furious.
Yeah, not everything can be like the first minute or so of the video The Caucasian Jerk Circle by Dr. Randomercam is to me, as in funny every time despite repeated viewings. But what you should do is what I do when I get sick of something on the internet. Try to ignore it and occasionally express your frustration if you can't help it.
I am not the only woman facing this. Many women have it far worse online than I do. How many more? How many more women threatened with murder?
I'm sorry, but when I was watching some black guy's response, he edited text over that to reflect the fact that it sounded like you said Mardar. And I just lose my shit thinking about that. Like, in The Shining, it should be Radram! Radram!
For speaking before we act up.
What exactly do you mean by act up? Do you intend to censor the internet? Because that would be unconstitutional in the American sense, as well as Orwellian, authoritarian, and maybe just a wee bit fascist.
How many more before we reclaim the internet as we reclaim our streets?
Again, what the fuck does that mean? You're being suspiciously vague here.
How many more men and young boys socialized into misogyny behind anonymous screens? This isn't helping men either.
How do you know that they're men and young boys if it's fucking anonymous? Also, you want to talk about helping men? Well, bitching and moaning about people saying mean things to you isn't exactly giving them their foreskins back now, is it?
You know that, right? I receive letters of support from men every week.
But curiously, you didn't make a video about the first time I received a letter of support from a man. Now, did you?
Men who are exhausted and struggling and terrified of trying to live up to the expectations of being a real man.
So in other words, pussies who can't simply be themselves and not care what other people think because they're terrified of expectations. Fuck expectations. Grow a spine.
Men who are angry with the violence they see directed at women.
Fuck you! It's not that I support violence against women. Far from it. In fact, I say fuck you because violence against women, even if it's not actually violence, is the only kind of violence you care about. You don't give a shit about men dying in wars, or men being victims of rape and domestic violence, or children being beaten by their mother, or even newborn babies being strapped to a table and subjected to genital torture. No, you only care about mean comments and verbal threats of violence sent anonymously over the internet in a way that it is physically impossible to cause actual physical damage. So for that, fuck you to eternity, you self-centered, narcissistic, sociopathic, egomaniacal, bitch, whore, cunt, slut, feminazi. Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
Men who are exhausted, not knowing how to end that violence, not knowing what to do. This is not about individual men. And it's not about a few internet trolls either.
It's about men as a collective, so we can label them all perpetuators of patriarchy and violence against women and death threats for poems and all that. It's also about women as a collective, so they can all be victims till the end of time. Because, you know, equality. And as a quick side note, you'll never completely end violence. The best you can do is make it punishable by law, which we did centuries ago, if not millennia. But again, I'm talking about real violence. You're talking about words.
This is not about all men, or some men.
Oh, apparently it's not about men at all. Gee, a feminist saying to men it's not about you? That's a new one.
This is about masculinity. This is about masculinity gone toxic and afraid. This is about a masculinity gone violent.
Masculinity gone wild, gone sexual, almost died, 2016. Yeah, it's like saying you're not wrong for being a man. No, you're wrong for exhibiting the personality traits that are a direct result of your body's natural hormone production and the psychological aspect of sexual dimorphism. And while it's fine to say that certain actions are legitimately harmful and should be considered crimes, i.e. murder, rape, and robbery, it's not quite as acceptable to condemn personality traits in quite the same way, especially when those personality traits and interests develop naturally and differently in the two sexes. Yes, there are only two genders. 1, 2, fuck you!
This is about a system of patriarchy so afraid of what we have to say and the fact that anyone can hear us say it, that it will threaten us, that it will abuse us and harass us, that it will use the only tools it knows how. More patriarchy.
This is where I have to bring it back to the part earlier when I said that the patriarchy doesn't exist. At least not in the way you would probably describe it. Because here, you've sort of validated that claim of mine. See, you can define things broadly, like how some people define God as energy or the universe, until by your own definition, they exist. Well, you can define patriarchy broadly enough to reflect undeniable differences in the behavior of the sexes relative to one another. But that's not what you did here. Granted, what you did say is still deliberately vague, which leads me to my next point. When you start using words like threaten, abuse, and harass, but fail to show a single example, all you're doing is giving me reason to dismiss your claims on the basis of lack of evidence.
More death threats, more rape threats, and you might not see it. But patriarchy is failing. Patriarchy is stumbling and falling. You might not see it, but patriarchy is losing.
You might not see it because it doesn't exist in the first place. Prove me wrong, I fucking dare you. And it's curious to me how you seamlessly go from patriarchy is this horrible epidemic of online violence against women, to women are badasses for using words, to toxic masculinity, and then to declaring that the patriarchy is dying and it's time to take a victory lap. It's like some weird back and forth between Gollum and Smeagol. But the difference here is that Smeagol is a meek little professional victim crying about being oppressed, and Gollum is an insufferably cocky douche who thinks he's the king of Middle-earth just for being able to form coherent sentences. Also, they're both speaking with exactly the same voice.
It is its dying breath, and it's using it to deny how badly it's going.
Kind of like Hillary Clinton?
It's patriarchy's dying breath, and it intends to go out fighting, to claw its ways into the hearts of young men who are so afraid of what their role will be in a big bad world that no longer belongs to only them.
In my experience, it's feminists who are concerned with roles, more specifically gender roles, and how the traditional ones that developed naturally in humans are evil and wrong and must be defied at every turn, to the point of being completely reversed, but that's beside the point. Men tend to be more concerned with what they want to do with their lives, as in a career. And they also obsess over women in various ways, ranging from drunken frat boy dude bro-ish tendencies to try and sleep with as many women as possible and mocking each other when they fail that endeavor, all the way to more romantic men who wish to find the one who can make a lifetime of being with the same person worthwhile and not boring. Whereas women tend to be the ones who want to settle down and have a family, sometimes at the expense of a full-time career. In either case, most people don't care about roles or ruling the world. Those seem to be almost exclusively feminist concerns.
But to all of us, whore, slut, cunt, feminazi, these are words used to pin us down, to keep us quiet.
Okay, seriously, how the fuck can words even do either of those things? The only thing that can pin you down is a physical object in the real world, not words on a computer screen. And the only thing that can keep you quiet is yourself, by choosing not to speak.
But we are dangerous women when we choose to speak.
No, you're not. You're just pathetic crybabies. Now stop repeating religious mantras and grow the fuck up.
To choose to speak is to realize that you are explosions in the center of the status quo.
Status quo. Status. Also, that metaphor is just terrible in so many ways.
They are only looking for ways to disarm you. They are only looking for ways to silence you, to make you safe for them, to make you compliant, and they will not succeed.
What's this they shit? Who are you talking about? Men? The mysterious and undefined patriarchy? Or is it anyone who questions the infallible word of the holy prophets of feminism? Because I hate to break it to you, but there are a lot of women and non-white people and gay people, and even transgender people in that category. You'd basically be punching up and down the entire progressive stack because there are members of every demographic that would be considered by you and your fellow ideologues to be guilty of wrongthink.
Because we are dangerous women, because to speak is to be a dangerous woman, and we will never shut up.
And that's your fucking problem. Don't get me wrong, I still defend your right to free speech, even though you clearly wouldn't do the same for me, but it's a problem for you because while you're determined to never shut up, that also means you aren't listening. I'm not asking you to listen and believe without question. I'm just saying it might behoove you to actually listen to legitimate criticism and disagreement once in a while. And what the fuck was that written and performed by credit at the end there? Was this a poem? Because 1, it didn't read like one, and 2, that means I should have done this whole response in structured stanzas of rhyming couplets like I usually do. Don't worry though, I'm not going to do this one over again, just because it kinda sorta maybe was supposed to be a poem. I'm done with this Chinese water torture of a video. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Honestly, with how long this video is going to be, I don't blame you. You can always give me more specific feedback in the comments. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on social media, especially Twitter. And if you really like me and wish to support my work, you can throw me a few dollars a month on Patreon, and it would really help me out a lot. So, that's it for me. I'll catch you next time. Stay great, apes.